Dear Elon Musk, it sounds very strange to hear myself say those words, but I hope that somehow a piece of this reaches you. You know as well as I do that this goal of ours, our dreams of returning to the moon, have slipped through our fingers or appear to be slipping through our fingers, and for reasons that both you and I know can be overcome. It just needs a different approach, and I know that this is something that you want to help with because you have said as much in public. And so for the first time, I am making a personal appeal to you, Mr. Musk, or to whoever works in your organization who might be listening. According to the NASA Office of Inspector General, quote, "For the past 14 years, NASA has been developing next-generation spacesuit technology, which 5 years ago led to the creation of the project known as the Exploration Extravehicular Mobility Units, or EMU, that will be used to support astronaut involvement in multiple programs. Specifically, the XEMU will be used on the ISS and Artemis missions involving both the Gateway and human landing systems. We reported in 2017 that despite spending nearly $200 million on extravehicular spacesuit development over the previous 9-year period, the agency remained years away from having a flight-ready spacesuit to use on exploration missions. Since our 2017 report, NASA has spent an additional $220 million for a total of $420 million on spacesuit development. The report concludes, I think as you well know, that even after spending over $1 billion on spacesuit development, they will not be ready until April 2025 at the earliest. And I also think that you and I know that that's probably an optimistic estimate. So there needs to be another solution, regardless of whether your lunar starship is ready to put human beings on the surface of the moon by 2024 will be irrelevant unless drastic action is taken, and I believe, Mr. Musk, that I have one solution for you. You may already be aware of it, but I would very much like to introduce it to you, and it is the MIT Biosuit currently being developed by Dr. Newman. As you may know, it is a bold and new way of putting human beings on other planets based on very sound engineering and scientific principles, and I would like to introduce you to the basics of this technology in the hopes that you will reach out to Dr. Newman, and I'm going to do this for you in just a moment. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Angry Astronaut. This is going to be, as you may have heard in the introduction, a bit of an unusual episode, rather a series of episodes probably, but this is the one that I currently care the most about, and this is a personal plea to Elon Musk himself. I am pretty certain he doesn't watch this show. However, I have reason to believe that there are employees of his in Boca Chica who do. Can't really say how I know that. I just do. And so I am making a personal appeal about spacesuits for Artemis. And a lot of people obviously are talking about this. I've removed my sunglasses just so I could perhaps be taken a little bit more seriously. We'll see how this works out. But in any event, Mr. Musk, you've already opened up opened up, the opportunity, the offer that you have made to help Artemis out with their spacesuit issue that's already running very much over budget and is based on outdated technology, is based on an outdated way of doing things. As a person who embraces bleeding edge technology and innovative solutions, I think that you may recognize this. And so I am making you aware of something that you may be aware of already, and this is the reverse mechanical pressure suit that Dr. Newman has been working on at MIT for quite some time now. Dr. Newman doesn't know that I'm doing this. Dr. Newman may have no idea who I am, but I am a big fan of her work, and I do believe that this new design of hers is going to revolutionize space travel for the human race. I do believe that it's just going to be a monumental change in how we do things by using this kind of technology rather than the types of pressure suits that we are accustomed to right now, lumbering about other worlds in massive, cumbersome suits that frankly are, and it's obvious, they're very difficult to maneuver in and also are incredibly expensive and difficult to design. She has been working on this design for years already, is close to completion, and as you're going to see, the amount of funding that she would require would not be that extensive. But I'm not going to keep talking your ear off, Mr. Musk, assuming that you're paying any attention to what I'm saying at all. Instead, I'm going to introduce you to this technology if you don't already know about it, and let's learn about the MIT Biosuit right now. This, Mr. Musk, is the extremely hostile place that you want to put human beings. And by the way, I thoroughly support your plan in making us into a multi-planetary species. But as we both know, it is a very cold place, a very inhospitable place, and a place with almost no atmosphere, practically living in a vacuum. The conventional way of doing things in conventional pressure suits will be impractical here versus the moon because of the gravity. It's double that of what it is on the moon, as you know, and so as a result, the types of pressure suits that we have used on the moon may prove impractical. There needs to be another way, and there is another way. To be perfectly blunt, the EMUs that NASA is currently working on are too similar, far too similar to the EMUs of the past. Just a few hours in an EMU can lead to bruises and scrapes, blisters, muscle strains, tendon sprains, and even detached fingernails. And this is according to information from Dr. Newman's own research. The EMU currently is like a giant balloon with the astronaut floating inside. The spacewalking astronaut must push and pull against the suit to perform the slightest activity without having fingernails and other fundamental features that we take for granted when we're performing the simplest of tasks or tasks involving the use of tools. The current suits that we make use of and the ones that we're working on now are both hindered by these kinds of issues and need to be worked on further. But instead of trying to fix, frankly, unsolvable problems with technology that is fundamentally broken and flawed at its core, I think, Mr. Musk, that you would agree that there are better ways to do this. Now, Mr. Musk, you probably know Dr. Newman because she was Deputy Administrator of NASA for 2 years, from 2015 until 2017, and yet even from this lofty position, she could not get further developmental money for her biosuit, or for some reason it did not develop any further during her time at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. The principles of Dr. Newman's suit are not new at all, but were rather developed many decades ago by Paul Webb and others based on the principles of mechanical counterpressure, which is akin to wrapping your body tightly in compression bandages in order to achieve an artificial kind of pressure on the skin, something that would work either on Mars or in complete vacuum. What Paul Webb lacked in his day was the types of materials that would adhere to the body closely enough in order to create this artificial type of atmosphere, but those materials now currently exist, largely due to Dr. Newman's research. In order for the principles of mechanical counterpressure to be effective, it requires that the suit adhere to the body very, very tightly, as you can see, and this is only accomplishable with memory materials. Dr. Newman's team placed memory wires along what's called lines of non-extension on the biosuit. The wires are then trained to a zigzag shape and bent back to straight lines to follow lines of non-extension. A special electric current is then used to get into or out of the suit. When the current is applied, the suit slackens, allowing the user to get in or out of the suit, and then when the electrical current is removed, the suit tightens onto the body, providing this artificial atmosphere, preventing the outside environment, a vacuum or an environment like Mars, from boiling your blood or having an adverse effect in terms of extreme cold and other conditions. The biosuit provides virtually all of the benefits of a traditional spacesuit. It provides approximately 1/3 of sea level atmospheric pressure, or 4.3 psi, on the skin. This would allow a degree of mobility impossible in a traditional spacesuit while still providing for an environment sufficient for human survival. Also, as you can see, a tear in a traditional spacesuit is much more difficult to repair than reverse mechanical approach. A breach in this suit only provides a problem for the breach itself, not for the rest of the suit, and can be easily patched in the field without assistance. The fabrics already exist. They have already been tested. And according to Dr. Newman, limb prototypes have already been put into a vacuum chamber and have held up under testing. Now, there are advances that still need to be made with the fabric. There are imperfections that need to be ironed out. But according to Dr. Newman, if she had a team of a dozen specialists, which she has lacked, of course, due to a lack of funding, she would be able to have a suit ready for testing in 3 years. And this was, as of her writing, many years ago. Dr. Newman's work also includes collaboration outside the MIT community, such as Trotti and Associates, which is an architectural and industrial design firm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, engineers from Draper Laboratories, and an Italian manufacturer of motorcycle racing leathers, which are comprised of leather and carbon fiber designed to protect racers of traveling of speeds of up to 200 miles an hour. Obviously, you also need an oxygen supply for this suit and an effective helmet, but all of these things are modifications and additions that can be made to a technology that's already had years of research put into it. According to Dr. Newman, and I think that she's enough of an expert to believe on this, a 3-year time frame is very realistic and with far less funding than what NASA is talking about for their current suits. Now, a compelling technology that I think could be coupled with this particular type of suit would be something called a Biobot, a way of taking your life support with you without having to pack it on your back or integrate it into a suit, but rather have it travel with you. And currently, Mr. Musk, you are making use of a robot that could perfectly handle this task. And this is, of course, the Spot, or Zeus as you call him, from Boston Dynamics. This kind of robot would be ideal for carrying life support for an explorer so they would not have to bother with it. Something like this can also maneuver the most difficult of terrain, and although would not be able to climb up and down ladders, your lunar starship is not designed with ladders, but rather with elevators, and not just one, but 2 elevators with redundant airlocks. In my opinion, this type of life support would be ideal for lunar starship. And like the Biosuit, the Biobot is not my idea at all, but rather one from the University of Maryland that also received NASA funding. and seems extremely promising, especially given the current level of robotics that we now possess, far beyond what you're currently using in Boca Chica, and you can see now what Boston Dynamics is truly capable of with their robotics technology, to say nothing of other companies that compete with them. And coupled with the lunar starship, as I said, I think that this type of life support would not only be groundbreaking, but a solution to the problem that NASA currently faces. Instead of trying to fix something that's been broken for over 4 decades, we need to come up with something different, something new, something innovative, something similar to what you did for rocketry now needs to be done for life support. And I believe, Mr. Musk, that you are the one to fund it. As I've said a number of times, you're probably already aware of all of this technology. Perhaps all you need is just a spark of encouragement or just a reminder that this technology exists. If this is indeed the case, links to all of this technology exist in the description, and no doubt you have easier access to the people who are working on this technology than I do. All I do is gather information and do my best to make it public, and it is my hope, Mr. Musk, that you do for life support and for spacesuits and for Artemis what you've already done for giving easier access for the human race to space. Thank you again for your time and consideration. So, Mr. Musk, or whoever at SpaceX may be watching this, and I hope that somebody is this the kind of technology that you would like to embrace for your own colonists, as I have said in the video, when they go to Mars? Wouldn't this be a far better way for human beings to colonize another world, to be able to move around much as we move around on the surface of our own planet, unencumbered by huge amounts of technology, but instead wearing a suit that more closely resembles our own bodies than our own physiology? This is just a much better way to handle things. I think that there may be a part of you that would agree with me, Mr. Musk, once again, if you are watching this, or I think, other people at SpaceX might agree with me about this as well. This is innovative technology. This is bleeding edge stuff, as I said before. This is the sort of thing that SpaceX gets behind. The impossible types of technologies, the types of technologies that NASA has regarded as being too risky or impossible, or for whatever reason that they've dismissed this in the past or not given appropriate funding to MIT to complete their work. Whatever the reasons are, Mr. Musk, I think that if you put your funding behind this, this will have very positive results for Artemis, especially given the amount of time that's already been invested in it. And I also believe that it can be perfected on a much smaller budget. Once again, could be wrong about all of this, but I think having competing spacesuits, having a different type of technology, a more innovative type of technology, competing against the more conventional type of pressure suit that NASA's been working on now for quite some time and has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in, I think that at least a competing technology needs to be there. Even if it does fail, it still should be invested in. And I encourage you, Mr. Musk and SpaceX, to invest in this, considering that you've already reached out, considering that you've already said that you're willing to help NASA achieve their dreams and achieve the dreams of so many of us of reaching the moon again by 2024. We are allegedly, anyway, being held up by the spacesuit issue, and this, I think, could be the solution, and I think that it needs to at least be investigated. And I certainly hope that somebody at SpaceX is watching this. If you like what I have to say, if you enjoy this channel, there are many ways of supporting me. It's all in the description. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on that in a personal appeal. So I will conclude, as I always do, until somebody recognizes that the way that we travel in space, just the way that we put human beings in vacuum or in other environments that are hostile to our organisms, until we find a different way of doing this that is going to be more comfortable, more suitable, something that we could actually see ourselves living in for the rest of our lives on another planet, because that is, after all, what we're looking to do if we're trying to become a multiplanetary species. Until we embrace all of these things, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.